So my parents kicked me out of the house, and this happened like right after my brother's graduation. Me and my brother got into a huge fight. Long story short, it was his fault. Oh my gosh, like it was just a huge fight, and the one thing that really bothers me is how much my parents coddle my brother. He's like what, 27 years old, and he just graduated, and they coddle him so much. And a lot of the times, whenever we have an argument, they always take his side. You know, he's always messing with me, and I tell my folks, and a lot of the times they're just like, growing up, a lot of the times they would say like, oh, boys will be boys, or he's just teasing you, or he'll grow out of it. But at this point, it's just getting ridiculous, and we had one of the biggest fights ever. A fight that I don't know if I can ever forgive him. Like, I'm cool and I'm calmed down, but at the time I was just so upset. I was even more upset at the fact that my parents, they don't like defend me. Like, my brother can say something nasty to me. My parents, they would just like turn a blind eye, like just look up to the sky, pretend like he didn't say anything. If I say something back, it's all on me. They start yelling at me, and it's just like, wait, what? Did you not hear what he said? So after his graduation, and we all got home, my parents basically kicked me out. They weren't happy with the way I was talking during graduation weekend, and my dad basically called me up to the living room, and he's like, you have 72 hours to pack your things and get out of the house. And in that moment, I wasn't like freaking out. And I think it's mainly because I know, like I told you guys in my last video, I've already graduated and I already have a job lined up. But the job doesn't start until like the next, until like a couple months from now. So I'm not too like stressed, because I know I have something lined up for me and everything's going to be okay. But in that moment, I was just like, oh, wow, is this really happening? Is he really kicking me out? But he was really like legit serious. And he's like, you have 72 hours to pack your things and get out. I don't like the way you were talking during graduation weekend. And I didn't even say anything, because it's like, what's the point when you have parents that coddle the males in your family, and they've always done so? Like, what's the point? Like, there was really, at that moment, there's no point in fighting with them. So after he said all that, the first thing I do is I call my sister. I'm like, he's really doing this. My sister's like, what? Are you kidding me? And she's kind of giving me advice on like what to do. So she's like, okay, the first thing you need to do is pack all your things and move the hell out. So I go to Walmart, and this is like at 10 at night is when my father tells me that I have to leave. And I have work the next morning at like 6 a.m. So 10 at night, I go to Walmart, I get a whole bunch of huge storage bins, and I make like 2-3 trips. I just pack them up in my SUV, I go home, and I start packing all my stuff, like clothes, like toiletries, like hygiene products and things like that. And I just start just throwing them in the bin, like just for the next like few days. That's what I start doing, is I start throwing like everything into the bin. And I didn't stop packing until like 3 a.m. That's when I got really tired and decided to sleep. And then I went to work. And then that next day, I came back from work, and I went to rent out a storage space. Because I didn't know where to put all my things. I didn't know where to leave them at. So I rented a storage space, and that's where I put all my things. Then the third day, I basically just packed the rest of my things in my SUV, put the rest in the storage space, and then traveled with, by duffel bag. So it was like those days like of packing, it was like a really stressful process, because during those 3 days, my parents wouldn't let me eat any food in the house. Like, they would leave notes all over the kitchen. You cannot eat this food. We'll know if you take something. And a lot of things, like a lot of the products, like toiletries, for example, I wanted to bring food with me. I wanted to bring toilet paper, extra toothbrushes, toothpaste and things like that. And we have cabinets that are full of them, and my mom locked all of them. So she wouldn't give me access to like any of those things, like soap, extra blankets, things like that. Like I didn't have access to any of that. So I was just like, whatever, I can always buy some at the store. So on the third day I left. I didn't tell them when I was leaving. I just left the house. And the first thing I did was I checked into an Airbnb. Because the day before I left, I booked one for a few nights. And I've never stayed in an Airbnb before. Being kicked out, this was like my first time staying in an Airbnb. And I wasn't too thrilled. But it's like, I don't have anywhere else to go. And it's short, it's like I gotta go. So I booked this Airbnb. And as someone who's booking an Airbnb for the first time, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, I booked an Airbnb out all the way in the country, literally. And honestly, it reminded me of like the scene of Get Out, like the movie Get Out, where like he goes and he visits his girlfriend's family out all the way like in the middle of nowhere. And that's where like my Airbnb was. Like it was in the country, pigs, cows, goats and horses and shit. And when you get to the Airbnb, there's like construction at the house. So I didn't even know, like when I got there, I didn't know I was at the right place because it's like this dirt road that you have to drive up to. And it looked like no one was home. It was in the middle of nowhere. So I'm just like, is this the right place? I don't know if I want to stay here. And I was just like texting my friend, pray for me. And I give her like the address and the name of the person who I booked it with, just because like, you never know, like crazy shit can happen. So I stayed in that Airbnb for a few nights and it wasn't as bad as I thought. Couple of cons, there was no service. Obviously it was out in the country. So like really the only way you can get service is if you drive back into town. So I was like, oh, okay, like no one could really reach me if I'm staying here for the next couple of nights. And that was kind of the main reason why I gave my friend the location and the name of the person who I booked it with. So I stayed there for a bit. I have to admit, it was a sweet family. It was a nice couple. So that was good. But I was out on my own for about like a week about a week in, and that's when my mother was like, she texted me this super long text message. And the thing that pissed me off the most is like, she made it sound like I wanted to leave. Like she made it sound like, oh, you just got up and left. And that wasn't even the case. I was kicked out, literally kicked out. Honestly, I don't know if this is like an African thing, like the memory loss. Like, do they not? I don't know. It's just kind of just pissed me off, a lot of the things she said. But at the end of the week, she wanted me to come back home because she's like, this isn't the way. Well, you kicked me out. So, but anyways, throughout that week, that was the first Airbnb I stayed in. The second Airbnb that I stayed in was in a neighborhood. It was a little bit further away from my job, but it was in the neighborhood. It was a little bit better. The couple had a son, and they were also renting out to other people who wanted to stay in an Airbnb. So it was nice. It was okay. And then the third place that I stayed in, it was interesting. It was basically like living with the cat lady because she had a lot of pets in her house, and I could hear like a parrot screeching every like 5 minutes. And it was interesting. I mean, she was a nice lady, I'll admit that, but like just like certain things in the house weren't working. Like I remember my first night there, I locked myself in the bathroom, and by that I mean I locked it to take a shower, and then when I tried to unlock it and open the door, it wouldn't open. So like her husband was helping me for like half an hour trying to get me out. It was just like a whole mess. But for this whole week, I was just eating kind of crappy. I was eating out a lot, and I'm someone who normally doesn't eat out, but I was just eating out. My friend initially did offer to allow me to stay at her place, but her roommate is the owner of the place, so because her roommate was like, nah, you can't stay here, my friend's like, sorry. But my friend did offer support, you know, in the emotional sense. But it was a really interesting experience. And honestly, I did not really like it because I was spending money like crazy. And for people who live at home, like, you save money when you live at home. Like, I've lived at home and I've been able to save money, pay off some of my loans. Obviously, I still have more to go, but I've been able to save money. So, like, when you, I guess that's what they say when it comes to being a real adult. Like, I was just spending money left and right, and I just, you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. Honestly, if I couldn't book an Airbnb in time, the last resort I would have come to would to be sleep in my car, park in the neighborhood or somewhere, and sleep in my car. You know, like, I was really thinking about that, but I'm like, well, I have money saved up from living at home. I'll just book Airbnbs. They're a bit cheaper. I do have a job right now, but the job I have doesn't really pay enough, and it pays really low because it's a job that I've worked at since college. But honestly, it was just one piece of advice my brother gave me, and let me tell you guys, I actually have twin brothers. So the first brother I'm talking about in the video, he's the one I got into the fight with. The second brother, he's a little bit okay. But one piece of advice that he gave me was, when you leave home, you know, when you graduate and you get your first real job and you leave home, leave on good terms. And I am really trying to leave on good terms. I love my parents so much, but it's just the way that they treat me and the way that they treat my brothers, it's become a huge problem. It really has. And it's like, no matter how many times you try to explain it, they still don't get it. And this is just like not in my family. I notice this happens in the Black community, that we tend to coddle Black men. Like, I hear that's a thing, that we tend to coddle Black men in the community. And my brothers are coddled, and they are just, oh my God. It's been a couple of days since I moved back into the house, but I've been trying to just be calm, and, you know, I can understand in this situation I overreacted. I mean, I didn't overreact, but the situation was a bit, how do I explain this? The situation just, like, went crazy. Like, it just went crazy. Like, you guys ever been in a situation where something keeps happening to you, or you just keep things bottled up, and you keep it bottled up and bottled up for years, and at one moment you just burst? And that's how I felt. I just burst, and I was literally crying to my folks, please understand where I'm coming from, because they could not understand why I was so angry. They could not understand. And I was trying to do everything in my power to get them to understand. And you know what? I've just come to the conclusion that they will never get it, and they'll never understand. And I feel like a lot of that has to do with the fact that they're not really from here. You know, like, they were raised in a different country with different norms and customs and values and traditions, and, like, they were just raised differently. And so I've just come to terms with that, and I don't want to stress myself out trying to argue with them back and forth of the issues that occur with me and my sibling, because I know no matter what I say, no matter what I do, they'll always side with him. It is what it is. I can't change it. You know, so that was basically, like, my week of just being kicked out. And then, like I mentioned before, at the end of the week, my mom, she basically texted me this long text message. Obviously, she put the blame on me. This does not shock me. She put the blame on me, and then she's like, you know what, just come home, because this isn't the way to go. And it's not like I had a choice initially when I left. I was kicked out. And so it's not like I had a choice. obviously I know this isn't the way to go because I don't want to keep spending money like this. Like the money I have saved up, I need it for when I start looking for apartments. So I can, because with apartments, when you save up money for apartments and things like that, you need money saved up. For an example, you need money saved up for first month, last month deposit. And depending on where you live, that's like what, $2,000 plus that you need saved up. So I wasn't trying to leave on my own and spend all this money and going in Airbnbs. I really had no choice. And I'm glad I had money saved up to live in Airbnbs, because there's some people out there who are actually homeless, who don't have any money, who have no choice to sleep in their car, who had no choice to, even sleep outside. So I'm glad that I had something saved up enough that I could, live in someone's home temporary and sleep in a bed. So it was just, I don't know, it was a stressful, I don't know if it was just a sick game that they were playing, but part of me is kind of glad that I am leaving home, because you can't live at home forever, and I really need time to grow. I really need time to be happy, grow, and just get away from them for a bit. I really need that, because sometimes they really be stressing out my life, honestly. They really do. And it's just, I love them to death, but they really be stressing me out. And, now I'm back home. We haven't really made up. It's been an awkward situation. No one's really talking. They'll talk to each other, but they won't really talk to me. I'll greet them and things like that, but they won't really talk to me. So, it is what it is. I'm just going to say that everything that happened during that graduation weekend, I'm not going to apologize for, because what I see here is that this is also a societal thing. Society tends to treat men better than women. Society tends to give men the decisions. So I see it within my family, and then I see it with society. So if it's not going to change within my family, it's just honestly, it just pisses me off. It pisses me off. I swear, women, we can be such at a disadvantage sometimes, and for it to happen in my own family, it hurts, because my mother, she's a woman, and you'd think that she would have more understanding, and you'd think that she would get it, but she doesn't. She really does not get it. So it's I have really no choice to come to terms with it and be civil with them and leave it at that, because there's really nothing else I can do or say. I've been trying for years, and there's really nothing I could do or say. But anyways, I'm back home now. I literally charged so much money on my credit card that I'm just trying to pay it all back at this point. I rented out storage space for a month, so a lot of my things are in storage space, and I already spent money on that, So I'm just gonna leave some of my things there in the storage space, and then at this point, I'm kind of just waiting for my placements for my job to know when they place me. So we'll see what happens. You guys enjoyed this video, you can comment down below, and I'll see you guys next time.